Oh, come in. Have you been good?
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if you really have been good. Have you been good?
Yes.
Good. Have you been good? Yes. Has everybody been good? Who has not been good? That is not nice. Welcome to the famous Christmas lecture, the Biochemistry of Christmas. Now we'll read you a quick poem because we have to discuss a few things. Christmas is not what you think it is. Are you ready? 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney. Please note, we will come back to that. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hope that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below. When, what to my wondering eyes did appear, but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick. There's a lot of stuff in this poem. It's not mine, but there's a lot of stuff in this poem which we need to unpick. And I told you in the lectures quite frequently, you know what they taught you at school? Things sometimes are not as they seem to be. For example, Father Christmas, St. Nicholas. Well, actually, if you think about it, it originated in Germany, where you still have St. Nicholas, who is celebrated on the 6th of December. St. Nicholas has nothing to do with Christmas. So maybe things are not what they seem to be. Non-competitive inhibitors don't exist. What about the rest of Christmas? And I need to tell you the true story about Santa. Because you think Santa is a good man. No. He's a drug dealer. Or, let's talk about this guy here. Who is that? Rudolph. Wrong. They say life is good. Yeah, of course life is good because they are con artists. Maybe I shouldn't show you that. But what's the story with Rudolph? He's an imposter. Why? What are his characteristics, Rudolph? Red nose. What else? He's a reindeer, yes. He can fly, yeah. Weird stuff, huh? We come back to the flying in a minute. Do you see his lovely antlers? Yeah, nicely decorated. And that's a giveaway. Because in reindeer, only the females carry their antlers until about February time. Male reindeers will lose their antlers in late October, beginning of November. So if Father Christmas comes with reindeers with antlers, especially Rudolph, a male reindeer, apparently because he has antlers, he must be female. So Rudolph is not Rudolph, Rudolph is Rudolphina. Or potentially, transgender or something like that. But they don't tell you that. Rudolph is an imposter. What about the fat guy? Where does this come from? Well, of course, we don't know for sure, but there's very good evidence that this man dressed in red has actually a true historical background. And I will make this link to you in a moment. Because what turns out is that most likely St. Nicholas or Father Christmas or whatever you want to call him was in fact a shaman, a person, a healer, a magician. How do we know that? Well, very simple. It's in the northern hemisphere where these shamans were active, where they practiced. They were actually very sort of upper class. They were highly respected in their cultures. They were talking and making the connection with the here world and the other world, the spiritual world. And as a sign of their status, they very often wore red fur coats. Yes? So they were probably shamans, healers, and communicators with the spiritual world. They had ways to connect to the spiritual world. And we can sort of follow that. We still have people who can connect to the spiritual world, with séances, sitting around the table. Oh, yes, give me a sign when you are here, Mama Beth. Things like that. Or, in the Catholic Church, there are these guys who have these sort of weird drugs, frankincense and myrrh, which make you a little bit high. You have people who drum into themselves, into ecstasy. Or the dancing dervishes who are just spinning the whole day and getting into a trance. These are all sort of connections with the other world. But we think that these shamans with the red coat, and by the way, they were not just male. It was absolutely perfectly acceptable to have a female shaman. So they were sort of EDI. What did they use? They used predominantly some drugs. So Santa was a junkie. What drugs did they use? Mushrooms. So Santa did shrooms. And you can immediately see the connection, red and white, and this particular mushroom. Does anyone know what this mushroom is called? Loud? I heard it. It's called fly agaric. This mushroom, it's a toadstool. And it's poisonous. But it's not going to kill you immediately. And if you are used to consuming it, you build up some tolerance. And actually, I was told that it gives a sort of a pleasant feeling, which the name already indicates. There is the word fly in it. And people thought, well, it is because flies are sitting on it. No, it's not. But if you consume this mushroom, you have visions of flying objects, which I will come to in a moment. So these mushrooms, why are they, how do they work? What is the drug in it? Well, here's the biochemistry. These mushrooms contain secondary metabolites that are produced by the metabolism of this mushroom. So one of these things is called ibotenic acid. How would you classify ibotenic acid? What kind of class is it in terms of substance? You can answer this question because we've discussed it. If you look at it, it's got an amino group and it got an acid. So ibotenic acid is an amino acid. Exactly. It's not used in proteins, but it just as well could be because it is a perfectly good amino acid. Now, ibotenic acid has pretty much no hallucinogenic effect. If you eat it, it doesn't do anything for you. However, if you remove this acid function, remove it in the form of carbon dioxide, you get a substance called muscimol. And muscimol is a very powerful hallucinogenic. So when you consume muscimol, you are away with the fairies. You think you can fly, and you can see things that fly. How does it work? Well, if you look at the structure of muscimol and the structure of gamma-aminobutyric acid, which is a neurotransmitter in your brain, and if you overlay them, you see that they have almost identical structure. So muscimol acts like GABA. It acts like your own neurotransmitters in the brain. It is sort of nature's answer to a roofie, to Rohypnol. You're just simply out. But not out. You still have fantasies. This is what you see. Flying things. Okay, so how do we get from ibotenic acid to muscimol? We need to perform a decarboxylation reaction. We need to remove the carbon dioxide. And there are actually two versions how you can do it. One version, I know you might not like, but it works. Although I've never tried it. Haven't done that. One version is, and that brings us back to the reindeers. Reindeers are absolutely crazy about these mushrooms. So they love to eat them. Whether they have flying fantasies or not, I don't know. I've never asked a reindeer. But they will eat these mushrooms and they metabolize ibotenic acid, an enzyme in their liver will actually remove the carbon dioxide, will remove the acid function, and will produce muscimol. And this muscimol is then secreted via the kidney. So the reindeers will wee Muskimo. And all you need to do then is, I know your parents told you not to do it, but in this case, do not eat yellow snow. You eat the snow, the urine of the reindeers, because now it contains muscimol. And if you get over this initial, hey, yeah, love, peace, and understanding, right? And then you can communicate with the other world. Yep, fantastic. On the other hand, if you don't like it, eat reindeer piss, you can use another method. Boil it. It's a good idea. Yes, nice idea, but it might destroy the ibotenic acid. Yeah, but you are absolutely right. What we can do is we can do a decarboxylation reaction through dry heat. Not too hot, but hot enough, and it needs to be dry. How can we do dry heat? Well, what we can do is we can take the mushrooms and put them near a fire. And in order to absorb the water, the drying, through the drying process, we generate also water, or we need to remove the water so that it gets dry. What we can do is we can put the mushrooms in a container that absorbs moisture near the fire. What would you use for that? A stocking. Exactly. You put the mushrooms in a stocking near the fireplace. And that is how you can actually generate muscimol. And if you know that trick, you can do it at home. I would strongly advise you against it. But this is how we believe the shamans, Santa, might have generated these drugs. They might even have distributed them to people, to make the long winter months more bearable. It's dark, it's cold, it's snowed in and things like that. Netflix, Netflix and chill. But they might have distributed it to their clients. Interestingly enough, these mushrooms, these fly agaric, grow in symbiosis with a mycorrhiza with trees that are quite known to us. They are fir trees. They are usually conifers in the northern region. And in order for these mushrooms to grow, you need these trees. You need these conifers. Can you see the link to the Christmas tree? We need the Christmas tree to get the drugs. Very clearly. But then, Christmas, bless you, Christmas is perhaps not just about muscimol, but Christmas is about all the other drugs as well that you consume. So, for example, if you are a fan of, let's say, mulled wine, you've got all sorts of things in mulled wine. Cinnamon, cloves, allspice, nutmeg, ginger. They all contain compounds that have strong activity on your nervous system. For example, cinnamon has a mildly anesthetic but very sharp effect, and it can sharpen your way of thinking. Cloves, spices that are used. When would you use cloves? You're not of that age yet. But cloves contain substances like eugenol, which are potent anesthetics. So if a baby is teething, you can put clove oil on their gums and it will numb the pain. Allspice contains lots of different compounds. Nutmeg, be careful with nutmeg. Yeah, nutmeg is a great thing, but it also gives you flight fantasies. So if you eat too much nutmeg, you think you can fly, but you can't, let me tell you that. And you can't sit in a sleigh and, it will take off. And it gives you terrible constipation. And ginger, ginger also contains lots and lots of ingredients that can have all sorts of interesting effects on your nervous system if you overdo it. Of course, we've got ethanol, which is very often consumed during the Christmas break, especially, Uncle Kevin and Auntie Louise after dinner. They are totally plotted with the sherry, all the drugs. But some of the drugs are not too bad. Who likes chocolate? Hands up. Everybody loves chocolate. Most people love chocolate. And you would think chocolate is actually pretty harmless. There's not much of a drug in it. Ha! Wrong. Chocolate contains drugs. Santa brings chocolate. Santa's a drug dealer, I told you. So what's the drug in chocolate? Actually, the drug in chocolate is a compound called anandamide. Anandamide, this compound, is related actually to what causes pain, to prostaglandins, but it blocks the prostaglandin receptors, and it also has a very stimulating effect. Anandamide is predominantly in dark chocolate. So if you love dark chocolate, you get your anandamide fix. Anyone here who speaks Sanskrit? An old Indian language? No? Nobody? Yeah, I thought so. Because Ananda means bliss. So when you eat lots of dark chocolate, you are blissed out. Why? Because if you look at the structure of anandamide and THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, that's the active compound in weed. They are exactly the same, and they act on the same receptor in your brain. So you don't need to smoke the stuff. You just eat 15 kilograms of dark chocolate, and again, you are away with the fairies. Speaking of eating and of, using things that you consume over Christmas, we can do even better. We can actually, when we make our Christmas dinner, we can use applied biochemistry to make it really good. Because after all, life is good. And how do we make the perfect tasting, let's say, roast turkey, or if you are a vegetarian, nut roast? How do we do that? I'm starting to salivate. How do we make it really tasty? Well, the answer is in a chemical reaction. It's called the Maillard reaction. And in this reaction, we perform a chemical reaction on the turkey or on the nut roast, which gives us all these beautiful flavors that almost act like a drug. I know my sister, she can't get enough of turkey skin. What is this reaction? Well, what you need for this reaction is a sugar. So here, for example, we might have glucose and an amino acid, and we combine them. So this amino group attacks the aldehyde of the sugar, and we form what is called a Schiff base. And this Schiff base does a lot of reactions, conversions, and we end up with lots and lots of these delicious tasting chemicals on our turkey. So how do we do that? How can we make that in the kitchen? We need sugar, we need amino acids. It only works in the absence of water and at a high pH, this Maillard reaction. So what do we need? We need amino acids. Where would you find in the kitchen amino acids? Very simple. In the turkey, yes, there are, but you want it on the skin. All you need is an oxo cube because they are yeast lysate. You just sprinkle oxo cube on top of the turkey or the nut roast. You might add a little bit of sugar. You add oil to it that will exclude the water. And high pH. How do you get a high pH? High pH. Lemon is low pH. Just a sprinkle of baking powder. And it goes in the oven. And you will get the most delicious roast turkey or nut roast with that. Actually, there are other reactions. So, for example, in Japan, you don't have roast turkey, you have sort of the equivalent of KFC. And here, the thing that makes people absolutely crazy and addicted to that stuff is a reaction of the cysteine residues. So again, people are addicted to that. So Christmas is really all about addiction. Santa with the shrooms, and us with chocolate and all the other things, mulled wine, spices, or delicious food. But what they all have in common is that it's all biochemistry. And I find that really comforting, that with biochemistry, you can do absolutely wonderful things, not just in the lab, but also in the kitchen. And before I let you go, there is, of course, a mathematical description for Christmas. Whether you believe in Christmas, whether you celebrate Christmas or not, let's have a look at this equation that describes Christmas. Are you ready for that? Yeah? It is this equation. How on earth can that describe Christmas? Hey, let's do a little bit of maths, because that is what we've done in the other module as well. And let's rearrange this equation a little bit. Let's bring that to the other side. So we've got r squared y equals ln x over m minus sa. Are you all right? How do we get rid of an ln? How do we get rid of ln? Yeah, loud? E. We E both sides. So we've got e to the power of r squared y equals e and ln cancels out. So we've got x over m minus sa. We expand the last term by m. We've got e to the power r squared y equals x minus sam over m. Now we bring the m to the other side. And we've got me r squared y equals x sam. And if you turn that around and write it in a slightly different form, you get Merry Christmas, everybody. Wishing you all a fantastic time. Thank you very much. Have a great break and do well in the exam. Thank you.